Are you one of the many millions of Americans who struggle to hit their driver far? Do you ever think, I could hit it farther, I just don't understand how to do it? Do you ever get tired of looking at your playing partners 40 yards ahead of you in the fairway, waving back and making fun of you? Do you hit your fairway woods and hybrids pretty well, but your driver's a disaster? If you answered yes to any of the previous questions, or if you just want to learn to hit your driver better and farther, the following live clinic is for you. I filmed and edited it for time, but this presentation covered 7 helpful tips on how to improve your driving and gain distance. And before we get started, leave your average driving distance and your biggest problem off the tee in the comments below. And if you'd like to continue getting help with your golf game from me, I'd be happy to do it. For access to future videos, subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications bell on so that you can get more help with your game in the future. Thanks so much for your support. Okay, morning everybody.
Morning, David.
Thanks for coming. Today we are going to have a discussion of distance with your driver. My name is David Franks. I'm the Director of Instruction here at the club, and I'm a PGA member, part of the Southern California section. We started the Calabasas Golf Academy about 3.5 years ago now. We were fortunate enough to be able to build the Performance Center here. We've now partnered with Callaway and partnered with PXG, and the Academy's grown tremendously thanks to you all. This is Chris Penman. He's our Callaway certified master club fitter, and between the two of us we'd like to discuss some numbers that affect your driver distance. We've got a wide range of players, some seniors, some juniors, men and women. The concepts that we want to talk about today will affect all of you. They just affect you in slightly different ways. The early part of the discussion we're going to keep to general numbers. I'm not going to talk to you as if you're tour players and as if you can swing the club at 120 miles an hour, because I'm just guessing. You know, I know Chris and myself can't move it that fast, and you know, the majority of the people that we interact with can't move it that fast either. You know, there's a lot of good information out there, but sometimes it can get confusing and sometimes it's not applicable to the everyday golfer. We really want to make an impact on your game, make things easier for you. I want to begin by talking about the sweet spot, which is measured by the TrackMan as smash factor. So the smash factor number is a ratio of club head speed to ball speed. So however fast my club is moving, if I hit it on the sweet spot, my ball is going to take off faster than it would if I hit it on the toe, or if I hit it on the bottom of the club. Can everybody see the carry distance there? I hit it 209 yards in the air. It would have gone about 240 yards total. So that particular shot read as 1.49. The tour average is 1.50, and one of my favorite things about smash factor is it has very little to do with your ability to move the club fast. It's just your ability to find the sweet spot. One of the most important things that you need to know to gain distance. It's not always something that's perfectly controllable, but if you cannot make contact on the center of the club face, you have a real opportunity to gain distance. If you're finding it on the toe or the heel and once in a while the sweet spot, that's an easy explanation for what we hear a lot, that I'm playing golf out here and I hit 14 drives for sake of argument, and I hit most of them 180 yards, and then all of a sudden it goes 20 yards further. And I feel like I'm making the same swing. If I hit one that's not so on the center of the club face, it'll directly affect the distance. So I'll try to swing one about the same and hit it off of the toe, and we'll see what else we get with the smash factor. So that one was slightly towards the toe. You'll see the number drop to 1.43 for the smash factor. It's just not coming as fast off the club face when you don't hit it on the sweet spot. And that one carried 15 yards shorter than the last. And I lost, what, total of 35 yards. You know, so it's a big deal to hit the center of the club face. We'll just roll right along. We do want to follow a certain order of operations when we're trying to help you improve all of these skills. Hitting it on the sweet spot is probably one of the early skills that you want to develop. If you're having trouble hitting your driver a long distance, that's the first thing that we should do, is figure out why you're not hitting it on the sweet spot, get you to be able to hit the sweet spot more often or closer to the sweet spot as soon as possible. The next factor that would have an influence on your distance is club speed. So on the very last shot that I hit, I swung it at 85 miles an hour. We see people here at the club who can swing it anywhere between 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour on the low end, all the way up to, you know, there are people who can swing at 80, 90, maybe even 100 miles an hour, you know, for some of the better players here at the club. And there's of course outliers on both ends. So it's a really wide range, and that speed has a lot to do with you as an individual. And this is a big deal because I talk to people all the time who come in and say, well, I want to hit my driver farther. I should be hitting it 240. I ask them, based on what? Because they, you know, in your mind, it's very easy to think of something that was happening when you were younger, when you're 20 years old, 25 years old, and you started playing golf, or before an injury is another common thing that we see. This is a carry optimizer. We use it for instruction and fitting. The left column is club speed, and so your club speed is going to dictate your potential for distance. Your physicality has everything to do with that. That can be your flexibility, your strength, your mobility, and those things are to a degree limited. At least here and now they're limited. Those are things that you could work on in the gym. If you can swing at 80 miles per hour, you're going to be able to hit the ball between 175 yards and 195 yards. Now, on the other hand, if you can increase your club head speed through technique, through fitness, sometimes through equipment as well, then maybe you're able to gain 5 miles per hour, or maybe you're able to even gain 10 miles per hour. So let's say you're a player who used to swing it at 80 miles per hour. You've done the work to get up to 90 miles per hour. Well, that 10 miles per hour, all of a sudden you're able to potentially hit it between 215 yards and 240 yards. So that's a huge gain that I bet we'd all like to see, you know. But if we could only gain 5 miles per hour, and we look at the 85 miles per hour club head speed, then we could gain 15 yards and hit it 199 yards all the way up to 223. So again, speed is somewhat of a limiter. So if I swing it a little bit faster, again, those first couple of swings were in the mid 80s, get it into the mid 90s. Okay, so that was a little faster. That's 100 miles an hour. And that's worth a 240 yard carry and a 270 yard total drive. So it's a big difference when you can add speed. We're only going to ask you to swing it significantly faster once you've developed that ability to hit it on the center of the club face. Now, it depends on the person. There are people who already have natural speed, and then we can learn to hone that and find the center of the club face. But a lot of times, it's better to work at a slow speed, put yourself in positions, learn to control your body, and therefore learn to control your club face to meet the club face to the ball and get better results.
Does the chart assume a certain smash factor on these numbers?
Good question. Yes. Assume, all other things being equal, that's what you can achieve. Okay. We'll get into a couple of the other columns as we progress this discussion, because there's definitely more to it than just club head speed. If you're a player who walks in the door and says, I swing it at X number of miles per hour, I can tell you right here, right now, today, if we improve some of the other numbers that we're going to talk about, we can get you to this distance here on this chart. We'll move it right along to face angle. Face to path is something that dictates how much energy you put into the ball. It's kind of tied into smash factor, but what it literally means is if my club is traveling one direction, where is my club face relative to that path? What causes a slice? If my club face is right of my path, my ball's going to turn to the right. If I can get my club face and my path to match up and be closer to zero, I can hit the ball a little bit straighter. If I can close my face relative to my path, then I can get the ball to curve to the left. Who slices the ball, or who has sliced the ball at some point in their golf career? Okay, that's the majority of the people we deal with, right? All right, so I'm going to exaggerate it to just prove the point. So we've all heard of the over-the-top move, and that's very common. If the club path is headed to the left and the club face is pointed to the right, that means my face relative to my path, or my face to path, is going to be a positive number. It's going to be open, and the ball will curve to the right. Okay, so this is a distance killer. You'll see my face to path there was 8.3. So that's a pretty dramatic number, but we see that very often. And so this becomes an early priority in instruction as well. to get you to square your face as soon as possible. This bumps up to the top of the list with smash factor because this will affect your smash factor so greatly. What was the smash there? Okay, 144. And we talked about when the club face is pointed in a different direction than the club is traveling, it doesn't put all the energy into the golf ball. So even though I hit that one fairly close to the center of the club face, it felt like to me, it's still losing energy because it's not as efficient as when I have the club face squared up and I can hit it directly. Okay, so that was back to 100 miles an hour and I only hit it 209, where we saw before I could hit it 240 in the air. It's a big distance killer. It has a lot to do with the way you grip the club, but also the over-the-top move. You're going to leave that club face open. So one of the things that we'll do almost immediately when you walk in the door, if we see that ball flight, is we're going to ask you to strengthen your grip, and we're going to try to teach you as quickly as possible to hook the ball and just do the opposite. So that would be a path change as well. Club face to path relationship to change to a negative number, or face to path, a small negative number. The club face to path again is just going to be a negative number. So that would have been maybe -5 or 6 to see it curve that dramatically. Now, in a perfect world, we always say that a path and face ratio should be inside to out or swinging to the right as a right-handed golfer. We would consider that to be a pretty good path if you're in the 4 to 5 degree range, and then the club face would be half of that, so 2.5 or 2. And if you have a face to path of -2, then we're going to see the ball curve left, but we're still going to maintain a decent trajectory and a decent carry, which is kind of like the earlier ones that I had hit. Yes, sir.
Can you show us what you mean by strengthening the grip?
Sure. It's just going to be taking my left hand and rotating it to the right. So I like to see the index finger and the thumb of the left hand stay together instead of spread out. We rotate over to the right. It's going to give you more leverage to close the club face. This isn't the perfect grip for everyone, but if you leave the club face open, this is at least an ingredient in what you want to be doing. When you turn your hand over to the right, you can see knuckles on the back of your left hand. So you may have heard that reference. We're looking at how many of those knuckles you're able to see. 2.5 knuckles is a pretty popular number of knuckles to see. I would argue to say the top hand or your lead hand when you're gripping the club is the most influential. And then we want to complement that with a slightly stronger right hand grip. I always like to use these V's as another reference. The V's meaning the index finger and the thumb, where that's pointing. I like both of them to match up and point over at my right shoulder. The club face angle is the most influential thing on the direction of the ball. Wherever this club face is pointed, that's mostly responsible for where the ball is going to take off. When we're trying to cure a slice, the first thing we're going to try to do is just get you to do the opposite. And so on the journey to a draw, I always see people go from big slice to slightly smaller slice. Sometimes they hit it straight for a while, and then they learn to hook it. Other times they go directly to a pull where they're just yanking it the opposite direction. Both of those can eventually mature into a draw if you're working on it the right way. To clarify, your grip is probably too strong if the ball is beginning to the left. So a good draw is going to be one that starts right at my target line and comes back near my target line or on it. And if this is getting a little more complex, just bear with me and we'll try to clarify through some questions. But if you've strengthened your grip too much and the club face is closing too much, let's say again I'm aiming near the orange and blue flag, that ball's just going to take off directly left. So that ball was never on target at all. The club face was always closed. It's 10 degrees closed relative to my path. It's overdone and the ball began to the left of my target. It doesn't really have a good chance to draw and still hit the fairway that I'm aiming at. And that's what causes curve on the ball. So there's a good chance that you're doing too good of a job swinging to the right, and we need to maybe weaken the grip, maybe neutralize the club face, but also swing less inside out or less to right field. Then the last number that I wanted to touch on is attack angle. So attack angle is essentially whether the club is hitting up on the ball or hitting down on the ball. Many times we see people hit down on the ball. And when you hit down on the ball, you don't give yourself the best chance to launch the ball high. Through attack angle, you can get the ball to fly higher and therefore fly farther. For slower swing speed players, which is the majority of us here in this group, that's an important thing to recognize. When you hit down on the ball and you launch it lower, you're robbing yourself of potential carry distance. In the tour average, PGA Tour, where they have a lot of speed, they swing it on average 115 miles an hour, they're going to swing slightly down on the ball on average, at 1.5 degrees down. It's okay because they have so much club head speed, they still create lift with the ball. But when you start to drop to 90 miles an hour, to 80 miles an hour, to 70 miles an hour, you don't have that same automatic lift of the ball, and so you have to create it through attack angle. The tour average, LPGA Tour, the ladies swing it slower than the men do. Low 90s on average with the club head speed. They already up their angle of attack to about 3 degrees up. Because they swing slow and because they're still world class and they're trying to get every inch out of their drive, they're going to be hitting up on the ball 3 degrees. On the extreme end of things, for somebody who's driving the ball, you know, at a world long drive champion level, and they have speed plus they're trying to milk it for every yard they can get, they're hitting up on the ball sometimes 6-7 degrees, and they're able to carry the ball inhuman distances. For the majority of us though, it's going to be helpful to get an attack angle that's on the way up. If you're hitting down on it currently, learning to hit up on it a little bit, 2 degrees to 3 degrees would be a tremendous help to you. As a general rule of thumb, if you're a slicer of the golf ball, I bet you don't hit up on the ball very often. We see very commonly somebody who slices the golf ball is also somebody who hits down on the golf ball. So they've got a few numbers working against them. Almost every number we've talked about is working against you in terms of distance. So just by changing attack angle, learning to square your face and create a draw, learning to hit it on the sweet spot, those simple things can create more distance in your game. And then the icing on the cake is if we can add speed to that. So that's what we can cover as far as instruction. Now, there's another component, and that's club fitting, and that's Chris's wheelhouse. So we're going to let him cover the rest of the numbers here and talk to you about what he can do after or sometimes before you work on technique. There's plenty of times that somebody says, well, I just don't want to work on my game. I've tried lessons in the past and I had a hard time with it. Or I only have so much time for golf and I just want to be here so I can play golf, enjoy myself. I've got my 1 day a week that I've allocated for golf, or 2 days a week. And when I have that time, I want to spend it on the course, not working on my game. Chris can still help you through equipment optimize and in a lot of cases gain you distance just through equipment.
Is the first thing to adjust where you place the ball?
In a lot of cases, yes it is. But if I play the ball towards my lead foot, it's going to help me hit up on it. Occasionally we'll see people who just put the ball in the dead middle of their stance. It's very difficult to hit up on the ball from there because you can't get your body behind it. You're just on top of the ball and you're very likely to hit down on it. So moving the ball somewhere between the instep of your front foot and maybe a couple of ball widths inside there, and that gives you a chance through setup to hit up on the ball. It's not going to guarantee it. I've still seen people with an extreme over the top move who move to the ball, essentially. The ball's over there by their left foot. They move to it, and all of a sudden I'm right on top of the ball with my body, and that's just going to create a downward angle of attack. Yes, sir.
What about tee height?
Tee height's another good one. If you are having trouble connecting with the ball and you pop it up, does anybody hit it off the top of their driver and, straight up in the air, it only goes half of what you're capable of hitting it, if that? You can tee the ball just so low that it's not possible to get underneath it. That's the quick fix. So I might tee it up so none of the ball is really above the club face. That doesn't necessarily optimize your potential for distance, but it does give you a great chance to put the golf ball on the center of the club face, which, as we talked about earlier with smash factor, that's going to trump your tee height, what should be your tee height any day of the week. That being said, to learn to hit up on the ball, you can tee it particularly high, and you can work on trying to hit it off the top of that tee. And through doing that, you're going to naturally learn what it feels like to hit up on the ball. That takes some time and certainly could cause you to pop it up in the meantime while you're learning to do it, but it's one of the things that we work on. So without further ado, I keep introducing Chris and not letting him talk, so here he goes.
We're going to talk about launch angle, and in order to optimize the drive, we need to optimize the launch angle. 3 different things that dictate launch angle, one of which is loft of the club head, and the other is attacking. So for starters, the ideal launch angle, depending on your club head speed, somewhere between 12 and 15 degrees. That's what's going to provide us the maximum carry distance and give us the most distance that we can achieve out of the drive. Most of us are playing with a driver that's probably around 10.5 degrees aloft. And so in order to really maximize that, we'd like to get it up, like I said, 12, 13, 14, 15 degrees. So in order to do that, we would ideally like to, as he said, swing up at it a little bit to create that extra little bit of launch and give us the maximum distance. But launch angle is the first thing. So a lot of times people play with a driver that doesn't have enough loft. Dustin Johnson plays an 11-degree driver. Loft is your friend, especially the way drivers are designed now. You want loft. With the new drivers, there's loft adjustability with almost all. Said through technology, through the right fitting. That's something you come out and see me. We can get you on the track, man. We can hit some shots with your driver, and we can see, are you getting the most out of your driver? There's plenty of times, like you said, where someone will come out and their driver, they're just getting the best numbers out of their driver, and that's a great thing. So we're not here to sell you a club. We're here to make sure that you have the right club for you. You very well might already have it. So the next thing I'm going to get into is spin rate. Spin rate is basically backspin. Every golf shot has backspin. And in order to maximize your drive, we want to get the right amount of backspin. There can be too low spin too. So if based on your club head speed, if your club head speed is too low and you don't have enough spin, the ball's going to fall out of the sky prematurely and you're not going to get the carry distance you would get out of it. We're playing the right lofted driver, the right shaft flex in order to get you the spin you need. Not doing anything, not adding club head speed. All you're doing is optimizing your attack angle, which is optimizing your spin and your launch. So these all coincide. If your attack angle is really steep, it's going to produce a really high shot with a ton of backspin, which is not what we want to achieve with the drive. The driver, now they want us to hit up. CLUBFACE technology, now that's where, as we were saying earlier, sometimes there can be a quick fit. A lot has changed in driver technology over the last few years. Callaway, for example, they've come out with what's called JAILBREAK technology. They came out with it last year in the Epic driver, which is right here. So JAILBREAK technology is 2 titanium rods that are top to bottom in the club head. If you were to watch the ball hit a club head in a slow motion camera with a driver, the head would expand up and out a little bit, and you lose energy back into the club head that's not transferred to the ball. So what Callaway did is they fused these titanium rods that hold the head together, so at impact you don't get the expansion, thus transferring more energy to the ball. That's one example of how, just by switching the club, you can definitely pick up distance. On average, people were gaining 5 miles per hour of ball speed with the JAILBREAK technology. You're looking at about 3 yards per mile per hour. Ping has forged faces, COBRA has forged faces, so the companies have come out with better technology in terms of making the faces as thin as possible while still conforming to the USGA rules. Shaft technology. The shaft is really the engine of the golf club, and the thing that we probably see the most is people playing shafts that are too stiff. Like I said earlier, not enough loft and shafts that are too stiff. In order to work properly, it's got to load and unload at the right time. If it's too stiff, it's just basically going to stay sort of straight and not give you the energy, not transfer the energy that you need to the ball, and that's not work the way it was designed to work. The majority of golfers probably should be in regular flex. It's just based on club head speed parameters. If you have a shaft that's too stiff, you're definitely giving up distance, and you're probably leaking it out to the right, and it's also affecting your launch angle. If the shaft's too stiff, the ball's just not going to get in the air, and it's not going to carry far enough. So getting the right shaft, David and I worked and spent some time. We went through probably 6 or 8 shafts. We hit probably 10 balls with each shaft. We charted numbers to really see what was going to give him the most out of his drive.
What about driver length? I've heard a lot about driver length.
Yeah, actually that's something that most people have a driver that's too long for them. If you've played golf for more than 20 years, you've seen the driver grow by more than an inch. And in the 90s, when I got my first big berth, it was 43 inches long. 3-woods are 43 inches long. Drivers are 45 and a half to 45 3/4. Now, the reason they did that is, theoretically, if you take a longer club and you make contact on the center of the face, the longer club's going to create a little more club head speed and you're going to hit it further. But it's so much more difficult to hit that longer club on the center of the face. I mean, if you went up and down the PGA Tour, the average driver distance, I think, is still 44 1/4, 44 and a half. And so, those, they're the best players in the world. So they could take a 45 and a half inch driver and probably hit it on the sweet spot
for a decent amount of times, but they want accuracy. And back to the first point of the day, in my opinion, the number one factor in distance is center face contact. All that other stuff is going to go out the window if you're not hitting it on the center of the face. So if you take a 45.5-inch driver and you're hitting it on the center of the face 2 out of 10 times versus a 44.5-inch driver that you're hitting on the center of the face 6 or 7 out of 10 times, which one do you think you're going to hit further? Now, and if you fight a slice to a shorter club, it's going to be a lot easier to square that up. I mean, they have a lot of draw bias drivers now that are really, really effective. So for people that hit a slice, we can correct up to 23 yards of slice with these new clubs that have, what they do is they have weight on the heel of the golf club, changes the center of gravity just a bit so that it speeds the toe up, and 23 yards of slice correction.
If you're wondering if it's time to get fit, does your golf swing feel stable? And by that I don't mean can you hit perfect shots all day long, but are you making the same move? Are you trying to do the same thing each day? Because that's what a fitting should be based on, is if you're consistently swinging the club 4 to 6 degrees left with a face that's a little bit open, your face to path is positive, and you're creating a fade, well, it's a consistent enough product that Chris can take that and fit you with an appropriate piece of equipment. But if it's something where I just learned how to shallow my club and all of a sudden my path number is changing, but sometimes I slice it, and when I really get it right, I draw it, maybe it's not quite time to do it. And that's the other benefit of this environment, is we're not going anywhere. We're not in a big hurry to get you to buy clubs today. It's really going to be when it's best for you. So.
I'm up here every week, Fridays and Saturdays, doing a demo sort of environment, much like PXG has set up over there. I set up an easy up with all the different clubs: Callaway, Ping, TaylorMade, Titleist, Mizuno, PXG. I want to schedule a time and let's work individually and see if we can really optimize this thing.
We are going to hold these clinics regularly. We'd like it to be, to grow in size and to bring friends that are members here, to bring family, guests. Any level of golfer is welcome. And I'd really like to tailor these to you, and we can really cover anything that you want to know. We're happy to help and happy to tailor this to your needs. That's what we're here for, is to help you improve. So please send me your ideas. And again, thank you guys all for coming.
Thank you, Dave.
You look like Luke Walton.
Luke Walton?
Anybody ever told that to you?
No, I haven't.